Hey guys, we're here with Sid. Sid made top 2 at the Justplaygames Tournament last week, and here today. It's a request on his profile as well, so we thought we'd go through his Nightrose Deck today. So, Sid, do you want to?
Sure. We'll begin by going with the main girl herself. We run 4 Nightrose. She's just the main grade 3. Really good, pretty much solid strike skill. On strike, counter +1, brings something back, gives 2k. And the GB2 is really where she really shines in terms of that when something dies, you can mill the top 3 cards of your deck and then recall the thing that dies. So this combos really well with the deck's main keyword mechanic of Hollow, which is in exchange for being killed at the end of the turn, it gets sent to the drop zone. But you can bring one of them back. In doing so, you'll also be able to trigger any on-call skills, which can lead to a lot of shenanigans. This potentially can be used both for defense and offenses, which we'll go into later. For the other grade 3, we run 2 Starlight. One main thing first going for is that it's a backup Nightrose, because a lot of cards in this deck needs that Nightrose name.
You need to be hitting that right.
And since we don't have the promo yet, so in terms of our stride, we don't have any other ones that can successfully. And also, her her strike skill is better than the old one. In terms that you can actually mill free with the strike skill. The only downside is that the power bonus you gain for it has to be given to a hollow unit. If you call anything that isn't a hollow, it don't get the 3k. It's GB2. It's not as good as the old one on Vanguard, but what it really shines on the rearguard circle. A lot of people underestimate this GB2. There's a really good it lets you call a grade 1, but a lot of people seem to underestimate and not actually take into account that you can actually call a Necrobone, something like a Necrobone out from, or a Seawall Banshee to do more combos later on within the game. A lot of people just run the 1 or and then tag 1 out for the whale promo you get. I don't like the whale promo because as much as the power it gives,
it's just a number.
It's just a number.
It doesn't extend much.
I just feel like in this particular meta, multi-attack, and this thing is just more flexible than the whale at the end of the day. And also, it's not dead right. You ride the whale, the whale's a dead right.
Yeah.
And then I run 7 grade 3, so this is the last one, which is Nightstorm.
So it's like a combo extender, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just there because a lot of things are 11k base, so it's just really, really good. It's just there for an extra attack. Usually it's just there for just good extra attacks. For grade 2s, we run 3 Cannoneers. This is one of the main key units of the deck. Right now, it's just a really, really good. It's like the main control engine of the deck. From the deck, it just lets you, if it's brought back, you can counterblast from the drop zone. You can just counterblast 1, kill a guy, and then if it's hollow, you let you draw. And then it also sets up like a Nile Griffin play with one of your G-Guards and combos with her GB2 to make the Nile Griffin on your opponent's turn for more defensive purposes. I'm only running 3 right now, but when the when the new promo hits, I'm bumping this up to 4. The only reason I'm running 3 right now is that the deck isn't consistent enough to abuse this to its max.
Yeah, to really abuse it. There's still the amount of pluses that you get from the card is like really, really good.
And then we run 3 Necro Rooks. Necro Rooks. Just pretty much also another MVP.
It's the main body, isn't it?
Pretty much, it allows you to hit anything. It's literally all you have to do is call, and then you swing for 16 every time. So it just makes big numbers there. And then moving on, our next one is Necrolazy, which is one of the main, pretty much, I would say 70 to 80% time when you're resurrecting with Nightrose skill. If you're not resurrecting the starter, this will most likely be the card you resurrect.
Yeah.
Because it's just so flexible in terms that it lets you, in combos with your G-Guard, you call this, it lets you essentially create 2 interceptor, and then depending what you call with it, let's say if you call the Necrobone, you gain 1 interceptor, and then you also gain the retiring ability, so that's another ++. Or you can call the stand trigger make the Ghosty family, you create 21k Vanguard.
It's also responds itself as well after you've used it.
If it's hollow, and it's also 11k hitter, so it's really, really good. Next we have King Serpent. It's just a really good thing for it refunds itself in coal. It's a really good setup for the Gashton. Pretty much. Second we run Parkour. It's just there because Link Joker is just a really heavy meta. Since Link Joker come back into the meta, this is just pretty much just needed, especially against Chaos matchup. I mean, against Messiah, you don't really...
This caught me off guard in our match at Just Play.
In terms of Messiah matchup, you shouldn't need to worry about going to this too much, in terms that current Messiah, since they don't run freeze ray anymore, your hollow should be more than enough to deal with their locking, to avoid their locking. But against Chaos matchups, this is still putting in majority of the work to unlock your cards.
And that's going to be staying in when the new 60 Chaos stuff comes out as well.
Yeah, pretty much.
Considering going up to maybe two or three of it when the Chaos
at best, mostly 2, but right now 1 is working out.
Okay.
And then we have 4 Strike Orders because still a GB deck in the other day, and then you need to, and it's Ghosty as well, so it works with the Ghosty. And then we have pretty much the main thing, the MVP of the deck.
This is the best card in the entire deck.
I would say this is essentially the one reason why this deck is still within the meta. Let's keep up with the current meta at the moment.
It's like the amount of extra attacks and combos that the stuff can give.
Yep.
It's just ridiculous. Like, out of all the things that I thought, I wouldn't mind 4 mix if this was at like 2 or 1 or something, because this just is silly. It's silly what you can do with it.
But I was just say, with the current power creep of everything, this is not as crazy as majority of other power creep cards there is. But it is the only thing. I would say the deck would not have been. The deck would not be good if this wasn't a thing. This is literally the MVP in terms of thing on top of the defense cards. Pretty much any time it boosts, counter plus 1, bring back any hollow unit, and then you just keep going crazy from there. And that's why I run 2 Starlights, because the Starlight lets me bring back 1 with this. So as long as I can bring back 1, that's just another extra attacks or combos coming in. Then I run 2 Bale the Ghosty. It's a good tag for countercharging, pretty much. Because the logic of this deck is that you think about it as every counterblast equals 1 attack. So the more countercharging options with linking attacks, the better. And it's also, it makes 16k. It's brought back from the drop zone.
Utilize that in the final game of your top 4 Just Play to get 2 more attacks, and basically you could basically call the bone over it, and then you've got the counter charge, and you're able to use the bone after the boost to call a lazy and a rook after that.
The only downside is that the counter charge only works in the battle phase, so you can't do anything during the main phase as setup. So that's the only downside. For PG, I run 3 Seawall Banshee and 1 Freddy the Ghosty. We'll start with the Seawall first. I know a lot of people currently still prefer to use the countercharging one, the Dash Jin, but I prefer, even when this was first announced, people thought it was bad, but I don't know, I just really like the refund, just really mean, because
it gives you a lot more survivability.
Because in my personal opinion, you have the starter, and then the starter is more than enough for you to, if you're a good player and then you know how to manage your resources in this deck, you shouldn't have any counterblast issue. Counterblast shouldn't be an issue, and you really shouldn't need the other PG. I know the soul is another issue, but
You have a lot of cards that can soul charge,
but
do themselves to soul.
I would just say, but this card has helped me out in a lot of situations.
I think you utilise it very well in say the wild matchup where that becomes a bit more of a grind game, where you sort of need those perfect cards.
Also, this was the one I took to the autumn regionals last year in Cardiff.
Cardiff,
Cardiff, and this helped me. This helped me more. This helped me out a lot. And if I had run the other one, I would not have done so well. Because this just lets me bring back a PG, and that PG always guarantees safety.
And use this one to combo with GR basically.
This
to get
one,
over guard restricts.
because currently there's a lot of things right now that has annoying guard restrict, like harmonics, gold, and shadows all have powerful guard restrict. Even dark regulars now. But Grand Blue is luckily being one of the few clans that has ways to bypass my superior calling the normal PG to trigger the skill.
From the drop zone instead of from that.
And then the reason why I'm also running this because it also has the ghosty name, so it works with the Obadiah. For triggers, I run one Mick the Family and then 3 of the Screaming Banshee. I'm running one of this because Bushiro in all its wisdom randomly, I don't know why, limit this down to 1 when there isn't. I'm pretty sure pretty much every other player in the world agrees that there was no reason to ban this.
Negrobone was the bigger problem in my
opinion. Seaworld Banshee, Screaming Banshee is just a really good hollow unit that lets it helps when you start with your starter and you call it to the front row. If you have this in hand or you call this saves you the trouble of calling over it. And it also works really well with your Sea Breeze turn, because every time when you want to Sea Breeze, you most likely you want to be on 3 damage. So you want to kill the starter first, then do the Sea Breeze, and then bring it back with the extra. This remove the need for you to be on 3, so you can actually be on 2. You use your so if your starter's on the field, you're on 2. You Sea Breeze, you call this. You literally cancel the cost for the Sea Breeze by the end, and it draws you a card. And it also brings anything that isn't hollow to make hollow. So some things like Night Storm can potentially trigger its extra attacks. And then
it gives you a bit of flexibility basically.
Critical, rerun 8 crits, so pretty much it's self-explanatory.
You recycle them with your Gaucher and then you just go on with that basically.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much you pretty much just want to bump them into the cell whenever you see them, so you can just set up for your gash
turn. Amount of times you Banshee, draw into another Banshee. Yeah,
that happens a lot. And then for heal, we run the Fighting Collection one, the skills. Sadly, it seems like Grand Blue isn't getting the new special variant of the heal trigger.
At least for now.
Yeah, for now anyway. But GR is ending, and it doesn't really seem like we're getting it for now. If that was the case, we would run it, but this is still a good alternative for now. Yeah. And then another MVP of the deck, which is the starter, which I would it's just been stable since the trial deck hit. Since the trial deck hit, just there. It
just allows you to go in really hard and then just basically refund it all in the end.
Pretty much. So it allows you just to commit everything and then not really end up nagging, so you can just keep going. And since it's also one of the cards you can just call to the. What I do a lot is call this to the front row at the start and just swing over an extra attacker, because I really don't care if it gets killed. The only 2 matchups that I would not actually use it or call it out in general is during a Link Choker matchup or Narukami matchup, because Links will just lock this up and then Narukami will just
binds it basically.
And Narukami just binds it, so it's a very important card. And we'll start with the G-Zone. I run 1 Sea Breeze because GB decks, and just for those grade 2 style games, and then 1, 2, 3 gash, 4 gash. Last year in Cardiff, I only ran the 2. And bumped the Necro Zonga to 4, because back then there was not as much interrupt and the control decks was not as heavy. So rushing with Necro Zonga was much more effective, but in this new current format, control is more so.
This allows you to stabilize your resources, basically.
Pretty much.
Like if you lose out a bit in the early game, you can use the crits again, basically, and refund your cost.
This can be a little bit awkward if you don't see the critical triggers in the early game. So you only bring back one for essentially a Soul Blast and another for 2 Soul Blasts and a Counter Blast. But if you can set it up early game, it generates a lot of advantage. This is essentially just a pseudo placement until we get the promo. Yeah. Then we have 2 Necro Zongas. This is essentially one of your main finisher combos, and it works really well with Starlight. One of the main important is that it lets you call in the attack in the battle phase, which is something that the deck don't have a lot of. And it actually makes really big numbers for every face-up card. So it's essentially like Alexandra, but essentially like an Alexander.
The numbers could reach Alexandra's like quite well, like very similar numbers to Alexandra's plays. Just not as many as units can do that.
The only downside is it has to be done at the end of the battle phase. The call screws happens at the end of the battle, so you won't be able to stack power to the unit you call. But what it makes up for in that you can actually search the top 4 cards of the deck for 1 card and mill it, and so that's in shape. So that's the one bonus it doesn't have. It has over Alexander is that it actually lets you search for 1 card. And then we have 1 Obadiah. Just if I'm going first strike, this is usually if I can't set up the gash, this will usually be the first strike I go into. Just lets you search out 3 cards. Essentially, just
like if you don't get a good hand or a good way to fuel the drop zone early on, this fixes that problem.
This is essentially a plus for 1 strike because it lets you also code Ghost if you code 3. So it's a really good card. It's also there to use in case things like Gear Chronicles spins your starter back with the G-Guards, so it's just there as a searcher. And then we have 1 Dragoon. It's there as a field control. It's really good against Shadow Paladins in terms when you want in those matchups where you just want to destroy their field and you don't want to commit too much to your hand size. Just as 1 tag, and then we have in terms of G-Guard, and then the 1 GB8. This is usually where you win pretty much. When every time you go into this, you call 5 cards and they give 10k, and then it's when you're
as well. So.
And then your shenanigans will. Everything dies at the end, but you should be winning, so it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter. For G-Guard, we have 1 Banquet Witch Necro Lily, which is the thing that lets you trigger Nightrose GB2 skill during your opponent's turn. So it just kills 1, brings back a Ghosty. I would normally combo it and bring back a Bale the Ghosty, and then use Nightrose GB2 to call it over the Bale to refund the cost for the counterblast for this G-Guard. So it's just really flexible and bring back usually used with Necro Lazy or Cannoneer, depending on the situation. If I want to power up my Vanguard or make a Denial Griffin play. And then we have 2 Necro. How do you pronounce it? Necro Nolas. 2 Necro Nolas just flip there. This is what allows you to bring your normal PG back from the drop zone to use the skill with, and it's also there so I can rush to GB8 faster. This current matter, you want to get to GB8 as fast as possible. You don't want to stall the decks, especially if you're decking. And then 1 this pretty much a Cray Elemental.
So it enables the Poké basically.
Yeah, pretty much. I would say in the Cray Elemental, it's pretty much more down to personal choice. Some people run the Egglim for the drop and draw. I run this because this is another big card event. It punishes decks that has big hand because it's essentially like a reverse Bermuda Triangle card in terms of hand power. And then one Eclipse Dragon because it's a really cheap cost, and it's essentially a +2 for the deck to mill 2. And it sets up the drop zone early game really well. And finally we have the Megiddo himself. It's just
Megiddo.
It's just Megiddo, yeah. Brings
it's
back
like
5.
GBA if you don't want it, like if you want to like go a bit sooner in.
Yeah. A lot of time I still have a weird thing in a lot of times where I can either end the game with Megiddo or GBA. I would normally go to GBA just because it's safer and it's much more powerful in terms, I think, than Megiddo ever is. But Megiddo is just there in case I can do it early game and I want to finish it fast.
Okay, well that's the profile. Any shout outs you wanted to give? Any final thoughts?
Thank you to my mate Christoph for helping me test this build the day before the Vanguard tournament, and everyone else in Fanboy for local, pretty much. And that's about it.
Okay, well that's Nightrose profile. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.